Hey everybody, welcome to episode 75. We made it to 75 of Making It. Yeah, I'm Bob Clagett here with David Picciuto.
Hey, I knew I was going to go first. I
told you last week.
Yeah, maybe that's how I knew.
Yeah. And Jimmy Diresta.
Hey guys, how's it
What's
going?
up?
Good.
What are you guys up to?
I'm upstate. So I'm upstate. I get to work in the backyard for a few days, which is super amazing. Working in the sun. I'm building walls for a trade show, which will only be exclusively on Snapchat. Because they're too boring to make a video of. And I won't be able to stage them and videotape what they're going to finally look like. So they're just pieces, just a paying gig. And I'm recovering from Saturday's surgery. I don't know if you guys know that I finally went in for my sinus lift. And if you guys don't know what a sinus lift is, Google it.
Got Botox on the inside of your nose? Is that what it was?
No, you know your sinuses line the top of your teeth. So on your upper jaw. So I'm getting 2 implants side by side, and in the back. And to prepare the area, they need to graft bone. And to put bone, they put it inside your skull. And to put it inside your skull, they got to make a window in your jaw. And to put a window in your jaw, they got to cut open your gum line. And to put the bone in there, they have to lift up the bottom of your sinuses. So I went through all that.
That sounds awesome.
That's why I look like I just got out of bed.
How's your wart doing since we're on the topic?
I scissored it off. I just cut it off with a little pair of scissors. And it hurt. And then I think I'm gonna do like that deep burn. I'm gonna do that deep cauterizing it. Probably do that tonight when I get my strength up.
Get your plasma cutter out.
Yeah, I'm just gonna put my finger on the other side of the steel.
Also exclusively on Snapchat.
Oh man, it's tough getting old. Don't get old, guys. It's tough.
Okay.
No, but the only reason I bring up that lift, that thing, that process that's taken it up, I asked the doctor a million questions, as I typically do, and I said, "Look, I don't care." I said, "I totally trust you," because she was like kind of qualifying every step. I was like, "No, I'm just curious because I do woodwork, and I'm just wondering how." So that's why if you take a quick look, if you're curious about these type of things, it's just amazing that somewhere along the line somebody was the first to undergo this procedure and say, "All right, let's give it a shot." And so now here I am, one of the multi-millionth person going through the procedure, trusting the procedure and taking it down the road. But yeah, so here I am.
It sounds like a long-term thing. Like, what's the recovery time of all that?
Well,
is that multiple processes? Or
yeah. So what we did is she went in and made like a little window in the side of my jaw so she could see what's going on just above the teeth. And you got to lift the sinus lining, the membrane at the bottom of the sinus. And she said there's a 30% chance that it'll perforate. And so we have to close it up and just let it heal again. And of course, I was in that 30%. So she closed it up and she said, "I'll see you in 6 weeks. If you have any problems, I'll see you in between." But so far, so good. I just can't open my mouth too far. And I have to remember not to sniffle, which I can't help but do. And I cannot sneeze because now, like, imagine your sinuses. Imagine there's a hole in your sinus and your gum line and you blow your nose really hard. Your gum line will fill with air. So it's just pretty incredible.
Well, how do you stop yourself from sneezing if you have to sneeze?
Well, the first couple of days were pretty treacherous. So Saturday, Sunday, Monday, it was yesterday. I actually sneezed today and I didn't really feel anything. So I didn't feel my cheek puff out when I sneezed. So I sneezed today like completely unexpectedly. But I'm just really trying to be careful not to sniffle, sneeze, blow my nose, and do all these things. So we got to go back in and try again. We'll see. Hopefully it'll work. But having broken the ice and gotten through the very beginning of it, I think I could survive this technique. I was nervous, very nervous at first, but people have gone through a lot worse. And at the end of it, I'll have 2 new teeth in the back of my mouth. So got to remember that.
It's true.
That's the
you
prize.
A lot more opportunity to eat.
That's the prize. It's like buy a brand new car or get new teeth. I actually really want to rather have the new car.
So I've noticed that you've been upstate. It seems like to me, anyway, you've been upstate a lot more in the last few weeks. Is that true, or does it just look like that?
No, it's true. I'm slowly kind of working up here more and more. Some of the jobs I'm doing are kind of more jobs I could do up here outside. And it's definitely where we want to end up ultimately. So this is sort of practice. And I'm trying to alleviate my neighbors of me making noise and being crazy. And then I'm also exploring my options for the long term up here. I have a couple of properties. I could still either buy this building or buy that building. And so it's just like being up here, I feel like is making all that happen faster for whatever that's worth. So
yeah, that makes sense.
And it's just nice being up here. I mean, like I said, it's definitely the turn that I've been wanting to make for a long time, and I just haven't had a chance to. And now that I'm making some money on YouTube and not having to physically work as much and hustle down in the city as much, I could come up here and do, more longer term stuff. So
nice.
Slow turn.
So I'm working on the book. I'm not sure if I mentioned what the book is about last time, but it's all cutting boards. And so we have 3 done and a bunch more to go. And I just ordered a bunch of bamboo, which came in this
I saw that
long strip, and it looks beautiful. A little expensive, but I think it's going to make some pretty cutting boards. So that's what I'm working on right now. I forget what the exact date is. I think it's late October. It's supposed to come out in time for Christmas shopping. So that's what I'm working on right now.
How many cutting boards are going to be in it? Do you know?
I'm supposed to know. I have a list, but I don't remember what it is. I'm thinking 10 to 12. And anyway, they're all from super easy beginning ones to more complicated with lots of patterns, and some are end grain and some are long grain, and a wide variety. The thought process behind the book was it was the publisher's idea to do a cutting board book, and it seems like woodworkers, one of their first projects is a cutting board, and there's no cutting board books out there now. So it could be a great book for somebody just wanting to get into woodworking and some nice easy projects.
Yeah, definitely. That's surprising that there's not books about it.
Yeah.
Well, good for you.
Thank you.
For me, the video that's coming out this week is so I carry, because of Jimmy, I carry a small tape measure on my keys all the time now.
Ooh.
Have for about a year, I guess, and it's just super handy to have a little 6-foot, one of those thin tapes. Use it all the time, and they jangle. They're like cheap plastic, that metallized plastic, and so they jangle against my keys all the time, and they make just a clicking sound because they're cheap. And so I always wrap them in electrical tape so they don't make that sound. Well, the other day I saw a picture on Instagram. Somebody had a wooden tape measure, and I was like, oh, that would be a perfect replacement for this, wrapped in electrical tape measure. So on my live stream last week, I asked people what they wanted to see and told them that as one of the options, and they said, yeah, let's figure it out. So I made a prototype of a wooden tape measure. I opened this up, pulled the tape out, made a wooden case for it to put in, and learned a whole lot in the live stream. Got a lot of great suggestions, as usual, from the people watching. And so then after that, I went back and made another one with all the knowledge that I gained from the prototype. And so that's what's going to be this
Were you
week.
able to maintain control of the spring?
Yeah, actually. The first time I undid the whole thing on purpose. I'm just going to let it go and wrap it back up. And then when I made the video for YouTube, I was able to pull the top off and keep everything intact, and then just hold it and move it into the new case, without anything moving. And it was way faster and more correct. It's still tensioned correctly and all that stuff. So
good.
That was actually a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. But
nice.
Yeah, that's what I've been up to. And trying to get everything caught up so we can go to VidCon next week.
Whoop, whoop.
So anybody who's listening, who's going to VidCon, David and I will be there. Jimmy's not going.
I'm going to stay in the city and work, or in the country, work on stuff.
So we'll be there. If you're there, let us know. We'll say hi.
Is there a schedule or anything? I know Casey, I'd been watching Casey, and he said he's having a party. I don't know if y'all be able to get in that party, but is there any kind of schedule or speakers that you guys are going to want to see?
There is a big schedule, and apparently there's a whole lot of stuff that is interesting that overlaps, like, so you can't see it all. But I actually haven't looked at the schedule yet, so I don't have any clue what I'm going to do there.
I've looked at the list of presenters, but I have not seen the actual schedule. I figured just wing it when we get there.
Yeah. Mainly, I mean, I've just talked to some other creators that I've never met, in person that are going to be there. And that's kind of what I'm focusing on, is just making sure that I can catch up with these people and say hi at least and stuff.
Okay. I have a different objective. Like usually when we go to these events, it's all about meeting everybody and talking to the people that watch and listen. And this time it's all about, I'm trying to learn. I'm going to try to catch as many presentations as I can, soak in as much information as I can, and hopefully leave with new knowledge.
Is there anything specific that you're looking to get out of it? Like of the knowledge?
I think storytelling. As I get into more vlog stuff, I want to hear how other people have learned to storytell, because that's a skill that it's not only good for the vlogs, but it's also good for project videos. Because if a project has a story to it and you know how to tell that story, that makes that video a little bit more engaging, a little bit more fun for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome.
That's cool.
Well, cool. So this week we are asking each other questions that we wrote. And so I got a question for Bob and a question for Jimmy. So I'll start off with Bob. Bob, my question for you is, it's about inspiration. What inspired you as a teenager or a young adult, and what inspires you now, and how does that inspiration affect what you do?
Ooh. I think as a teenager, I was really inspired by musicians, probably the biggest. A lot of watching Jimi Hendrix play for the first time blew my mind. And it was like, I wasn't introduced to him as a young kid. It was like, probably as a teenager. I know what it was. You remember the Columbia House, like CD club thing, where you get 10 CDs free and then you have to pay $80 a piece after that kind of thing. So I ordered a few, and there were a few left over, and I was like, oh, Jimi Hendrix. He's probably somebody I should know about. I don't really know, And so I ordered this CD live at Winterland, listened to it, and was completely floored. And then I was like, okay, I have to have everything Jimi Hendrix that I can possibly get my hands on. And from watching videos of him play and stuff, it just really blew my mind that somebody could be like that. And that was a big inspiration for me getting back into music and trying to be in bands rather than, because I grew up playing classical piano. And so to go in the rock direction was a very kind of big shift. So that was big. And then like Nirvana was coming out in that same time period. And they really stood out in my mind from what else was happening. And so I was inspired by music. These days, I think music is still a big part of it, even though I play music. One of the things that I think about musicians that I like is that they do things that I am not capable of, and that's inspiring to me. So when I listen to certain bands, I go, oh, like in my head, I'm like, oh, I could write a song that's that good. And then when it comes down to it, I can't. And so the thing that's inspiring about it is that these people are so good at what they do, and it's a place that I probably won't ever be, but it's motivating for me to try to be better at what I do, and it's not just music, but that's something that I still see that in myself going like, wow, that album, I could never do that. I don't need to do that. That's not my thing, but so I think a lot of people, anybody that's excels at what they do, and it's something that I have no business doing, is inspiring to me, which sounds kind of weird now that I say it out loud.
Yeah, but it makes sense. It makes total sense.
Yeah.
We were in the car just the other day, and a song comes up on our on iTunes, and Kelly was like, "Why can't we just write songs like that?" And because it's just not that easy. It's like it's really hard to write a good, catchy hook. And it's tough, but it's inspiring to hear that stuff because it gets me excited as well.
Yeah,
we were listening last night to a lot of old rock and roll, like Deep Purple, like early Deep, really beginning 70s, all this stuff. And Taylor just kept saying, "Why doesn't music sound like this anymore?" It's so soulful and with all those good hooks. But as music evolves through the generations and through the different time periods, it's funny. It just doesn't seem the same. I haven't heard anything new lately that really sounds like anything as good as that's going to last for 30 years. But then again, you really got to be away from it before you really start to see if it is going to last that long.
Well, one of the interesting things about music too is that, we, as a musician, you generally build on, when you write music, you build on the experiences that you've had. And so you build on the stuff that you were listening to. So if you go back and look at, every 5 years from 1970, you see that the next generation of songwriting is really an evolution of what was right before it. But then you go like 3 or 4 generations, and there's a whole bunch of stuff, being like 5-year generations, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's lost. Like that soulfulness came right out of the blues.
Right.
But then by the time it was blues rock, and then it moved on to rock, and then it moved on to punk, metal, like all those different evolutions, and pieces get left behind, and a lot of the soul gets left behind. And then at one point, a lot of the punk got left behind in the alternative stuff, and it's like, you only take with you what really spoke to you as you start to write music. So.
And as we get older, we always think back. We always think like, oh, they don't make things like they used to. But the kids growing up now love what is currently out. It speaks to them.
They're just wrong. But
no, you're not kidding. They are wrong.
It's a funny experiment that I do that you guys could do as, talking about generations. Whenever I have my classes, I become comfortable with my class in the beginning of each semester. I start asking them if they know who certain people are. And it's funny.
Just as, to gauge where they are.
Yeah, like, do you guys know who John Lennon is? Do you guys know who, these famous songwriters or whatever, or pop culture people? And it's funny, the generations really disconnect from previous generations. And, I like to think I know everything. Somebody once said, oh, what do you know about Abe Lincoln? And we were in a group of friends. And this girl goes, he died before I was born. He goes, so you don't know about anything before you were born? That's a real ignorant question, answer for that question. And so it was just funny. I mean, she was a millennial who answered that way. But it's just funny how, generations go and things get left behind. It's hard to believe, when you're as old as us and you can look back and see all these different things. And you're like, how could somebody not be curious about this or that?
I think you'll find like a lot of talented musicians study the previous generations. And so there are a lot of bands now, like bands that I like, you could tell like they were big fans of like the Rolling Stones or the Beatles or Led Zeppelin, right? And so I tried to take that approach into woodworking. So when I first got started into woodworking, I was actually studying like all the different styles of previous generations and green and all that. And I learned from that, like what I did like and what I didn't like, and tried to incorporate that into what I do now. So there's a lot of parallels between making and music.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Cool. So are we ready to move on to the next question?
Let's do it.
So my question for Jimmy is, this one's about feedback.
Right.
Either from comments or from clients. What type of feedback do you enjoy the most, and how does it affect how you design and build future projects?
I like constructive criticism. I can certainly listen to somebody telling me something I don't know, but when it's framed with a sarcastic comment, it just immediately makes me defensive. So when somebody gives me a comment that say, hey, nice attempt. Next time you should try this. And if it comes through from a genuine place, you could certainly hear that. But when sometimes, I'll do an axe handle and someone will be like, you're a moron. You have no idea what you're doing. You should have done this. It makes me not listen. So, but when someone comes at you with a constructive criticism, and, they don't have to compliment me, but it just has to come from a place of honesty without any disdain. It certainly makes me listen. And I've learned a tremendous amount from the comments. One simple thing, which is I actually Snapchatted about it about a year ago. I did one of the tool restorations, and some guy, he was a little snarky, but he goes, there's no reason to sand all that rust off. Just put it in white vinegar and it will dissolve the rust. And I never knew that. And since that comment, I do that all the time, and it works really well. I actually tested it. I'm like, does this really work? So I tried it. And so this next video, in an upcoming video, I'm going to restore 3 tools, basically unrust them, 2 of them are chisels. So I'll make handles for them, and just kind of restore a sexy set of scissors and a pair of pliers. So that's, there are lots of comments that were constructive, positive feedback that I do from time to time. And I certainly remember the moment I learned them. So, and coming from clients, it's just, I've said it 100 times, it's just really important to get your communication down. And then when you're into a job with a client, if that client starts becoming difficult, just only talk to them through email so that you have everything in an email. When you start chit-chatting with them and they're like, I didn't say that color. What are you talking about? That's why when you realize somebody starts to go in that direction when you're already in the mud with them, it's important to just stay inside the emails. And so just constructive criticism will always stay with you. And that being said, there are moments in time, like every time I do something, I always, in my mind, I get an instant flash of the person that taught me that. And it's funny how that stays with me personally. Like every time I grab, like when, for instance, when you pull a nail, right? You pull a nail and it gets really far out. And then if you have either a piece of wood or another hammer, you lift up the head and stick it underneath there and pull it some more. So you basically pull the nail, then raise the head up and pull it some more to get the nail completely out. I learned that from my uncle, my dad's brother. He just showed it to me on a job once. And so every time I do that, I get that instant flash of him just like showing me really quick and saying, that's how you do that. And he walked away. He was very gruff. My Uncle Tony. So like dumb things like that. Like, so in a day, I get flashes. I mean, it might happen unconsciously, obviously consciously as well, but I get tens of flashes of memories of people teaching me things. So when anybody gives me constructive criticism, it always gets put on the bulletin board of my brain. So
it's something I love that story, and something that I've learned recently is when it comes to comments, I look at them a little bit different now, because somebody commented on something and it sounded rude, and then like right away they left another comment saying, sorry for my English, it's not my first language. And that kind of hit me. I'm like, there's a lot of comments that I probably thought were rude, but much of my audience, English is not their first language. So it comes off the wrong way. And so ever since then, I have a little different view on the comments, and I take them a little bit easier now.
That's a very good point. And I must say, lately I haven't been getting any rude comments. Hardly any at all. I get a couple thumbs down, but that's fine. That doesn't mean anything. But people always say, like, if they do see me respond to a rude comment, they're like, you get so many positive ones. Why do you focus on the negative ones? I delete like 9 out of 10 of them. So if somebody really just says something nasty, I just delete it and I don't even reply to it. But if it's something where I could be snarky and funny, but also give a little bit of information, then I'll answer back. If it's an opportunity, like by my reply, I'm writing a joke, I'll definitely add that up. But the comments in the last few months have been all, thumbs up, positive. And like I said, when somebody sees me do something, it's like, oh, you know what? That reminds me of this time my grandfather taught me this. And I love that. And, that's how the whole community benefits. So stuff like that is just great.
Yeah, a couple times I've gotten why didn't you do this? And usually, like, my first thought is, because this is the way I want to do it. But once in a while, I'm like, crap, I never even thought to do it that way. That would have been so much easier.
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of that. It's like, hey, why didn't you Justin? I was like, damn, I wish I would have thought to do that before I started the video. It would have been a lot easier. That would have
saved me a ton of time.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, yeah.
Cool. Was that a sufficient answer?
I'm satisfied.
Okay, cool. My turn. So this one's for David. Imagine, let me take you away. No, I'm just kidding. Imagine that the next year is the best year of your life. Okay? Hands down. You get a year from today and you're like, that last year was amazing. What is it that made it amazing? Very specifically.
When it comes to
dollar bills.
Dollar bills make me happy. When it comes to work stuff and content creation stuff, that is people I can tell how well a video is done by how many shares it gets, and if it gets picked up by certain publications or whatever, and those shares turn into more subscribers and more views and more engagement. And so success there is just more shares and people saying, hey, check out what this guy's doing, because that makes me feel really, really good. And then the personal life is just like doing fun things with Kelly, going out, having a good time, just growing older together and just making memories with her. So it's funny you ask that, because this past year was the best year of my life, and the year before that was at that time the best year of my life. And so it just seems like every year it's just getting better, and it's really helped my attitude towards a lot of things. As I have a little bit more success, I'm a little bit happier, and I have a better view on things. So there's no doubt in my mind that this next year would be the best year of my life.
Good answer.
Okay, well, I'll ask you in a year, and then you can tell me if you were right about those things. All right, this is for Jimmy. So, yeah, I'm going to get you. Historically, everybody knows Jimmy Diresta as the guy who can do just about anything, right? You do all sorts of different types of work. You work with all sorts of different types of tools, techniques, materials, all that stuff.
Yeah.
What is something that you cannot do better at? Something, and it doesn't have to be in the shop, but like, what's something that you have gotten, you've tried and failed, or just not been as good as you want, and you will not get better at it ever in your life?
Typing on an iPhone. Everything I reply to, I have to type 14 times. I literally have to type it, reread it, and like every single autocorrect is wrong. It is the most difficult thing for me. And because I kind of slur and I have a bad New York accent, when I try and do type to text, it has no idea what I'm trying to say. And sometimes when I'm talking to somebody, I'll do type to text and I'll hit send because I'm driving. And then I read the text 10 minutes later and I have to go back and say, I didn't mean all those weird things that I just said. So writing is extremely difficult for me. I mean, I was trying to be funny, but writing is really hard for me. There's so many opportunities. People say, can you write an article for us? Can you write a column for us? Can you do a daily this or that? That's why I stay away from like the daily vlogs like you guys both do, you know, and you guys are so articulate in writing up your plans and all these things. All that stuff for me is very difficult. When I have to sit down at a keyboard and put my thoughts, like I would always sit when I was in elementary school, it'd be like, okay, write a book report. I literally would open that little blue composition book and I'd like, this book was good. I liked it. And then after that, I could not figure out what else to write. And I'd see kids and they'd be on their fourth page and they're like, can I get another composition book? I filled this one up. And I could not figure out how to get out of my brain like the enthusiasm I had for something. And at that point, it all was just me faking it because there was nothing there. Like I when it comes to articulating and turning like thoughts and all this stuff into words, for me, it's always been extremely difficult. So like if you see my replies, I'll get like fan mail that's gorgeous. Like I said, a lot of my fan mail will make me cry. And I just write, that was beautiful, because that's the most thing that I could say that is honest. And I can write back 7 to 10 words and that's it. I mean, if I try and go past that, the sentences will start making no sense and they'll be backwards and flipped upside down. And I don't know where to put periods and commas. And I've always been learning disabled. I mean, that was what I was classified my whole life. Even, I guess around 6th to 7th grade, from that point until I graduated high school, I was always considered learning disabled. And I would go to this special room throughout school and they would say, I never knew what I was diagnosed with. They just said, you're learning disabled. And then by the time I graduated, I was re-diagnosed as being just simply lazy. They said, your IQ's high enough. You can do all these things. You're just lazy. And I said, maybe I'm lazy. Maybe I'm just not interested. But honestly, the struggle in my life has always been being able to articulate the thoughts and comments. I mean, and it's absolutely one of the one of the big factors that why I don't talk in my videos. Because when I hear other YouTubers, I mean, well, when I started, I just was annoyed that other YouTubers would talk. Now there's so many articulate, beautiful voiceovers that people do. I just didn't think I'd have enough to say. I'd be like, yeah, look, this is how you do. You just cut it. That's it. Like, what else am I going to say? Just watch me cut it. And that's how you cut it. So that was like my point of view. Yeah, I guess that would be it, because every day I open an email and go to answer somebody and I just struggle. Like I'm pitching around a concept to a couple of advertisers. And so today I wrote a few emails and I just was struggling with it. And I just keep it short and sweet to the point. And that's why I guess it's been a benefit in the way that I'm super frank with people. And, people ask me a question. I'll say, yeah, sure. What do you want to do? Like that's how I say it, instead of trying to articulate this long drawn out answer that I'm doing now. But
I see it in your tweets, because your tweets are nice and short and simple and to the point. And I think people have just come to learn, like, that's how Jimmy replies. It's nice. He says everything that he needs to say in a few words. Yeah. And I know Bob wants to say something. There's one more thing that I want to say is in your videos where you talk, I love them because it shows your personality, and it just comes off as real, and it's you. So I do love it when you talk in your videos. No,
thank you. I'm definitely getting more comfortable, and there are moments in time when I teach. I remember the very first day I taught. Now I've been teaching since 1994. September of 94 was my very first day. I was hired to teach. The teachers, the guy who hired me said, put together some ideas. Came up with some ideas, and at the time there was no email, so I had to meet him and show him what I was going to do. And he said, "All right, cool." He goes, "You have 3 hours." So I was horrified. Class started. I was staring at a bunch of students. I talked for 10 minutes, and I ran out of things to say. And I was like, why did I say yes to this? This is a terrible idea. I have no idea how to keep the air filled with words. But as I really began to physically do stuff, then I had things to talk about. My brother, John, who's an actor, he says, when you have physical things to do in a scene, it makes it seem more natural to be able to accompany that with dialogue. So he says, and that's been a great help for me, is being able to do things physically and have some dialogue. So when I walk around the house and I'm showing off my garbage and the things I found in the trash, it's real easy for me because I have things to talk about, objects to talk about. But, to just kind of like compose on a subject has always been a little bit hard for me. But as the point I made is, as I was teaching, the more I got into it and the more I had things to talk about physically, all of a sudden I'd fill up 3 hours of conversation, and the students would be all waiting with their book bags and jackets on, waiting to leave. I'm like, oh, it's 3:00 already. All right, you guys can leave. So it comes to me. And then when I'm in the groove, it's hard to shut me up. But getting that on paper has been the most difficult thing, honestly.
So to follow that up, if writing is the thing you have the most trouble with, articulation, I know you make things, obviously, but what's the thing that you use to articulate? Like, how do you articulate something in the most effective way?
Just when I build stuff, a lot of times when I'm trying to have a conversation with somebody about a design, and they say, I'm trying to talk to them, and I say, you know what, just give me a piece of paper and I'll just draw it for you. So I'm fairly good at drawing 3-dimensional views and schematics and helping people understand through paper. I mean, the best, again, nonverbal communication. When I go to China all the time, I spent many years going to China in the 90s, developing toys and developing injection molded products. I would sit with the factory managers in southern China and around Beijing, and I would just draw pictures. And they all came to know me as like the American that draws pictures. I hardly talk. So I would sit at a table with a bunch of copy paper and a pencil, and I would draw pictures of the things that needed to be fixed and made. And, everything was all development. So we'd get an injection mold. It's like going to tooling, and then you get your tooling, and then you get your first shots, and then it has to be fixed. And so I would do drawings of modifications, and they would all, they would go like that, and everybody would understand. So it was kind of a very articulate, non-worded communication, non-verbal, and there was no email at the time. So, I was always drawing pictures. So visually, is my way of communicating and articulating, just visually. And again, that's why my videos have mostly just images and no conversation. And, So, and then another thing that I just cannot get better at, is precision. It's funny. I had a conversation once, a really quick dialogue with Switch and Lever, Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I wish I could be as precise as you. And he wrote back to me, he said, I wish I could be as loose as you. So, we both look at each other and, there's Switch and Lever, and then there's Chris, is it the Click Spring? I see those guys, and I see something I see a place in the world I'll never be. I could never be able. The minute I try and cut something, the bit breaks, it burns, my feed is all wrong. I burn the bit out. I have to go find a new bit. So I am just like a sloppy precision craftsman. I'm a sloppy non-precision craftsman is what I meant to say. So when I use the lathe and the milling machine, I'm just going by feel. If it looks right, it feels right. It works. Sometimes I make the part 3 times before I get it right.
It's funny, like going back to music, there are very precise guitar players, and then there's also like a sloppy guitar player. Not sloppy as in like timing, but sloppy as in like when you watch old Nirvana videos, like
totally
Kurt is like hitting way too many strings at one time, or some of the strings are playing notes and some of them are kind of half muted, and so there's precision and sloppiness, and they both work. It depends on how you can make them work for what you're doing.
It's a really good analogy, because it's always been an analogy that I paid attention to. Is like, because I listen to lots and lots of music, of course, and I listen to jazz and rock and roll and country music, and some of it is sloppy and some of it is precise. And I actually have really made that comparison about my work, where when I get frustrated and I can't be as precise as I want to be, I just say, I'm a sculptor. I'm not a machinist. So just remember that. Don't get upset being not what you really want to be or not what you are anyway. So just take it for what it is. And so that analogy is something I've actually made in my own mind. When you listen to Hendrix, of course, who doesn't love Hendrix? You talked about it, Bob. And when you listen to him play Voodoo Child, it's just him just like jamming on the strings and just finding all that sloppy, rhythm that just works so well. And, I've looked at some of the things I build and I've made that analogy. It's like when I listen to songs like that, I know this is so out in left field, but I really have made that analogy. And it helps me be okay with being sloppy. My trolls don't understand that, but it helps me be okay with it. So
that's an interesting thing. I mean, you were talking about the comments earlier about the difference in language and how a comment can be taken. It's exactly the same thing. Imagine you and Daniel from Switch and Lever came to the same project, someone else's project, and you were both watching it. You would have an idea about it based on who you are and on your level of precision. He would have probably a very different one, So that's another thing to take into consideration when people comment, for positive or negative, about your work, is they're coming at it with a different set of eyes, a different set of experiences than you are. Neither's better or worse. They're just coming at it from a different angle.
Yep. So, well, that's a good question.
Thanks.
I mean, I really do struggle with the idea of writing stuff. And you guys know, I have a book coming out with Make Magazine soon. And it was not nearly written by me. It was all spoken by me and transcribed and, kind of fixed up a little bit by John at Make, my co-writer at Make. And we have a manuscript. And so we're working through the couple of findings. And my friend Nick Offerman is doing the forward, so I'm looking forward to that. He promised he would do that a long time ago, and so now here we are. So he's going to do that. So that'll be exciting to see what he writes. So
awesome. and all the entrepreneurial podcasts and books that I listen to, one of the common themes is if you're not good at something, either learn to get good at it or find somebody else to do that for you and focus on what you're good at.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep. I totally agree with that. Yep. So now is it my turn to ask you guys questions?
Yeah.
Yep.
I have like a vague, like it's not quite as precise as you guys asked because that's how I am. I'm sloppy, but
nice. Good play.
Dave, I wanted to ask you. I was going to ask you guys like where you'll be, kind of thing, or where you were. So, Dave, where do you hope to be at the age of 60? Because 60 for me is 10 years away, and I've been thinking about it. I know it's further away than that for you. Mm-hmm. So, what do you think life will be like at 60 for you? What do you hope it's like?
That's a good question. It's 20 years away for me. So and I've said it before, I don't think too far ahead in the future because I'm always changing my mind and I'm always doing the pivot thing where I find something new. But right now, I have found this thing that I just absolutely love and I can't stop thinking about it. It's always on my mind and I'm always looking for ways to get better at it. And that's just like this content creation where I make something and then I share it on the internet. And so when I'm 60, I hope I'm still doing something where I make something, and I don't know what the internet's going to be in 20 years. It could be something totally different with the way the technology moves. But I'm hoping I'm still sharing what I'm doing. And whether that's teaching or maybe by that time I have honed my artistic skills where I'm doing like more sculpture based things and I have an audience to watch me do that. I have said many times, like, I won't ever retire. You retire from something that you get tired of. And I hope to never get tired of what I'm doing and just constantly making and sharing.
That's cool. Will your beard be gray or will you dye it?
I dye it now.
That's what made me think about it because I saw you once with dye on your face. It's Snapchat.
Yeah.
That's funny. And Bob, think about when you were 30.
Okay.
How old are you now? You're 40, 41?
38.
38. Oh, so 8 years ago. Wow, I thought you were older. So
Almost 39.
So you're exactly 10 years younger than me. So when you were 30, because I was recently reminiscing about the year I turned 30 and the things and the goals and stuff. The year you turned 30, are you where you thought you would be right now when the year you turned 30? Like, I thought I would be in a totally different place when I turned 30, where I am right now.
Oh,
so, yeah. So looking backwards now in hindsight, as opposed to what I asked Dave. So are you where you wanted to be when you were thinking about your life at 30?
No, I'm in an entirely different place. At that point, I was I was really heavy into software, and I had one kid, a newborn. And so at that time, I was like thinking, okay, I'm going to, write some really awesome applications and like kind of be in technology from now on. And also dealing with a newborn, like I have no clue what the future looks like. Because, when you have a kid for the first time, everything goes out the window. You don't know what's up and what's down and all that stuff.
Let me ask you a follow-up question.
Okay.
What the hell made you have 3 more?
Well, you know how it works, right? You know how
like, what did you get, the stock on Amazon or something?
This is not a how-to podcast, so we don't have to go into the details.
Yeah.
No, that was just a joke. But
no, yeah.
You can keep talking about where you thought you'd be at 30.
Well, yeah, I really thought, like, career-wise, I thought I would be deeper in technology. At that point, let's see. At that point, I was still working for an ad agency, and I was doing app development on the side. And so it was kind of always like, well, maybe I'll go back to doing my own thing someday. Maybe this app will take off, or I'll write some other ones and, I'll become my own boss again someday. But right now it was like a newborn. I was comfy and had benefits from my job and stuff like that. And so, I was kind of just like, at that point, honestly, I was kind of like in survival mode, like, making sure that I have enough income to take care of the kid. And, I was comfortable in the job and everything. So I had no clue that I would be where I am now. I had no clue how big my family would be, or that I would leave software, or that I would end up making videos, because that seemed really far from my personality at the time.
So what did the 30-year-old Bob Clagett think the 40-year-old Bob Clagett was going to be? That was a simpler way of articulating my original question. So.
Yeah, I think at that time I just wanted to be like a super cool active dad, because as soon as I had a kid, I was like, okay, what do I want to be when this kid is old enough to like realize who I am? And like when he's a 8, 9, 10-year-old and wants to do things, what kind of dad am I going to be? Am I going to be the absent, like, I'm going to go drop you off at baseball practice and go do my own thing? Or am I going to be the, hey, jump in the Jeep with the top off, let's go to the mountains, you and me, and do something crazy? Am I, which kind of dad am I going to be? And so at that point, I was really trying to figure out, like, I want to be active in my kids' lives. I want to be, I want them to grow up and look back and be like, man, my dad did all sorts of awesome stuff. Yep. And so at 30, I was trying to figure out, like, what does that look like? How do I prepare for that? How do I get active? How do I, right. It was a lot of, like I said, not having any clue what was going on and trying to figure out, like, how do I become who I want to be for my kids over the next 20 years or whatever. So, I mean, for me, honestly, having kids, it's a big shift for everybody. But for me, it was a real, like, defining point. Like, this isn't about me anymore. This is, sure. And I have to decide how much I want it to be about them and how much I want to hold on to my own goals and my own, like, self. And, and just, I think everybody has to make that decision when they have kids. And there's no right or wrong, but everybody has to figure out where they fit there and what kind of parent they're going to be. So that was a big thing for me at that age.
It seems to me, and maybe I just have a skewed perspective on things, but it seems now 40 is the new 30, and 30 is the new 20, right? Like when I was 15 years old, 30-year-old people just seem old. Like they had no style and they had no voice. But now that I'm 40, like I've got 40-year-old friends and they all got their own style and they have their voice, whether on the internet or, on Facebook, and people still seem cool. I just thought you lost your coolness as you got older. And maybe it's always been this way, but it's just how I look at it now. Yeah.
It's funny because looking up, you think, they're old, they lost their cool. And from their perspective, they're like, yeah, I'm still cool. It's just, and it's exactly the same way now. My kids will probably look at me in a couple of years and be like, no, he's not cool. And I'm like, yeah, of course I'm still cool.
I'm still cool with my elastic waist jeans.
That's right, mom jeans. So it's funny because you said that. When I was a kid, my grandparents were in their 70s, I guess, late 60s, early 70s, somewhere in there. And I remember thinking, man, they just move slowly. They don't do a lot. I mean, my granddad was really active and really, he's maybe the exception. But, how you think of like older people, you think of senior citizens having like relatively limited, action that they do and like events and things that they go to and all this stuff, which is totally wrong. But now I look at my dad, my parents, who are around that age, and they're like, my dad is like super active, and my parents are both very healthy and very, engaged. And it's, maybe it is different. Maybe it's not just our perspective. Maybe we actually are living differently at different ages than we did a generation ago. Because I don't look at my parents like I looked at my grandparents when they were the same age, for sure. Mm-hmm. So
it's funny. I just had this conversation with my mother on her birthday, early June. I said, Mom, her mother passed away when she was like in her early 70s. But my whole entire life, I look back at my grandmother and she looked like she was always 70. Like, I don't remember a time when she looked young. I said, I go, does your mom, like she always to me, she just goes, my mother, because it was a different generation. She just like kind of assumed that position of like a mother and grandmother and just stayed there. And she just always seemed old to me. And now when I see people that are her same age, I'm like, if I focus on it, I'm like, wow, it's just amazing. As a little kid, how much older people really seemed.
I wonder if our generation or younger generations cling to their youth more than older generations did. Like what you just said was really interesting. Like maybe she just accepted the fact that she was going to be an old lady from then on. Whatever that means,
Yeah.
Maybe they just accepted the responsibility and the stature and the stuff that went with it. And maybe we've been more resistant to that, which is why 40 is the new 30, I don't know.
It's funny. I mean, I'm 49 and I look back at like the things I've accomplished and the things I have. I'm like, it all seems like it happened by accident. Like I don't like it's like, oh wow, I'm still like a 20-year-old moron trying to figure out what I want out of life. And I accidentally like had this minor success with this, and like I accidentally got a house, and now I'm trying to think about getting a different property, and it just seems so grown up and complicated. I'm just like, oh my God, what a pain in the butt all this is. It's like, how did I get to where I am now? I mean, I still feel like an idiot. But at 49. But anyway, just try and keep it.
I should title this one, Jimmy Still Feels Like an Idiot.
Yeah. Oh.
Cool. Well, we got any other questions? Any bonus questions anybody thought of?
No, well, that's pretty good. That covered a lot.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's thank our patrons real quick before we talk about what we've been watching. Especially Make, Build, Modify, Dominic DeFino, John Cornwell, Luis Gonzalez, and Jeremy White. They're our top patrons. But
thanks, guys.
Everybody who contributes anything is really, really awesome. We're really grateful for it.
Thank you all very much.
The support is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. What have you guys been watching, listening to, reading, anything?
So I have a YouTube channel this week, and it is called wouldbrew. And the creators on this channel is Molly and Dylan, and they are a young boyfriend-girlfriend team. Like, real young. I'm not sure what their ages are. Could be like 16, 17. I'm not positive on that. But hopefully I didn't offend them.
I met these guys in Atlanta. You guys were in Atlanta, were you?
I was not, yeah.
Yeah, these guys were in Atlanta. These guys are awesome. They're super cool.
Yeah. And it's just really cool to see young kids making videos and a couple making videos together. Like this, I love it. I can't wait to see more videos by them.
Yep. Cool couple. I get to hang out with them a little bit. They hung around the hotel a little bit too.
Do you remember how old they were?
I think they're only like 20. Like, they're not little kids. They're like 20, 19, 20.
Okay.
They look a little younger than that, but I think that's about how old they were.
Okay.
I think if I remember correctly, do you happen to know, is he from Alabama?
Not sure.
Because a couple guys showed up at the Atlanta show. It's a quick story. And it was me and Brian from Wood Creations. He parked his truck next to me, and they both say, I make. And so I said, hey, who wants to be in the club? And everyone whipped out their phone and started going to their local DMV. And he immediately got, for Alabama, I make. And Freddie from Tennessee got I make. And Kevin from Ohio, Picciuto, sorry you weren't there, he got I make. And like five of the guys hanging around us immediately like secured it for their state. And I'm pretty sure that Dylan did for his state as well. And
nice.
And slowly, this club is only going to be 50 members in it. Is getting filled up, and I'm the president of the club.
Self-appointed president.
I'm not just a member; I'm the president.
I do remember.
Wait. I'm not just the president. I'm also a member. It's the guy, the bald guy.
The haircut.
So I'm going to give.
I do remember. Speaking of your plates, like whatever. I think it was the Maker Faire event last year. It was like the first time I was getting ready to see you, Jimmy. I had never met you in person before. And Bob and I were walking over to your hotel. We saw your truck. And of course, I took a selfie with your license plate.
Right on. That's funny. And I didn't even realize my license plate is still my YouTube meme. I don't have a picture of my face. I just have a picture of my license plate. My face is like behind the license plate. My eyeballs looking through one of the screw holes, but another story. So my two picks are Doug and Greg, Douglas and Greg. Douglas from Retro Weld. And I don't know if I talked about it before, but he just put up a video of visiting my shop, so people might be interested in that. Just, it's funny to see a different point of view of me where I'm not in control of the edit and just being myself and talking. And so he's got some images of the neighborhood where my shop is, so it's cool to see that. But check out Douglas's channel. It's Retro Weld. And then Greg Porter has Greg's Garage. So those two guys were at my shop together. And so there's video cross-reference of them both being at my shop on either one of their channels. And Greg is lately making these twisted steel pens. And I helped him drill the first initial few holes. And then he got another channel, Tom's Tool Room, involved. And so now those guys are working together on making a bunch of them. So
nice. Just
follow that story. It's pretty cool. And those guys are awesome, good guys, upstanding members of our community.
Excellent. Well, I got two. I had one, but I thought of another one. Mike and Lauren, which I think I've mentioned them before. They're a couple that does financial videos and how-to videos. It's an interesting combination. They both have good camera presence and stuff. They've had a bunch of interesting things happen to them, but one video I thought was really cool. They're building a portable shop that's in a trailer. And so they're trying to figure out a lot of the mechanics of how do you move tools around, how do you mount tools and all that stuff. And so there's some interesting problem solving. But he came up with a storage idea for these like hand clamps that will lock a tool on a track system on the wall. So you can easily lift these things off and then move them around and lock them back in. And it was like some trial and error within the video, and he, there's a lot of prototyping. It was cool. It was neat to see. And I think he's got some really good ideas about that. So go check them out. And then we were talking about music earlier, and I remembered somebody I've listened to for quite a while, but specifically heard some of him today. Gary Clark Jr. You guys know of him? Mm-hmm. Super talented guitar player and really soulful. A lot of like bluesy rock up to rock, pretty wide gamut of stuff. But if you don't know about Gary Clark Jr., go listen to him because he's really, really good. So, I think that's it, unless you guys got anything else for this week.
No, that was good. That was a good episode.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. Well, thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you back next week.
See ya.
I love you.
Every single time.